Cronenbourg 564. Sponsor du Tour de France.
Last night, the scene outside the Gare Saint-Jean in Bordeaux. The survivors of the Tour de France ready now to be whisked away by TGV Express to the final battleground, the time trial just south of Paris. For Alvaro Mejia, a chance to reflect now on his fragile second place. But for some on this final weekend, the pressure is off. They can't win the Tour, and it's time for a joke. Hello again and welcome to the last weekend of this year's Tour de France. Today the final crucial test, the individual time trial. Now Miguel Indurain, who leads this tour, has never lost a time trial since the prologue in 1991. And you know, apart from a sharp reversal in form today, he's not going to lose this one either. But the battle for second place has never been better. In second place is Alvaro Mejia, but he's only 14 seconds ahead of Jaskula. Tony Rominger, who will win the King of the Mountains competition in this year's race, is 1 minute and 13 seconds behind Mejia, and he beat him by more than that in the last time trial at the Lac de Madine. Now, to a professional cyclist, a place on the podium in Paris is of extreme importance. It will help him negotiate a bigger contract next year. One of these three is going to be unlucky. We've seen a lot of Tony Rominger over these past 3 weeks, but the other two remain something of a mystery. Here's Paul Sherwin to tell us more about Jaskula, but first, let's have a look at Alvaro Mejia with James Richardson.
26-year-old Alvaro Mejia is carrying a lot of Colombian hopes with him today. He's long been seen there as the heir to trailblazing Colombian rider Luis Herrera. With his 19th place in the 91 Tour, Mejia won the Best Young Rider award that year. Bad luck, though, has kept him from living up to that promise until now. Firstly, a knee injury forced him to retire from last year's race. Then this year, his deal with a new Postobon Donne team went into limbo after Donne's collapse. It wasn't until this May that Mejia was finally able to race, a deal with Motorola putting him into the Giro d'Italia. There he managed 30th place, but better form was to come in the Tour de France. On the road to Serre Chevalier, Mejia took off in pursuit of the Rominger Indurain breakaway, taking over a minute off them on the tough Col de Galibia climb to cross the line with the world's top two riders. So far, he's held on to second place in the Tour, but the disruption of his early season is taking its toll. He may not have enough left to keep second after today's tough time trial, but if he can survive with a top 3 place, Colombia will be on for their best finish ever.
The name Jaskula is not one that's been uttered too many times over the last few years, and one wonders where this unknown hails from. In fact, there were many amateur riders hidden behind the Iron Curtain for years, and it's only recently, with the falling of the walls, that they've been able to show their talent. Jaskula was the unbeaten time trial champion of Poland from 1986 to 1989, but more importantly, he took the silver medal at the Seoul Olympic Games in the team time trial. He turned professional in 1990, thanks to the association of the famous Italian frame builder Ernesto Colnago to the Polish Cycling Federation. Il Cavallo, or the Horse as he is nicknamed because of his great strength, watched the Tour de France on television, but never thought that he would be able to follow the great men to the summit, let alone beat them.
And watch out for Jaskula, who's gone. Jaskula goes. Rominger snatches the gear lever, takes on Jaskula. You see Indurain was in trouble. He can't hold the wheel. Indurain will concede, so be it, a few seconds on the line, but at least he's shown to us today that he is human, and he does crack if you race him the right way. Jaskula, brilliant win for him. Jaskula went for gold to become the first rider from Poland to win a stage ever of the Tour de France.
But with a name that means swift, if he flies in today's time trial, it will make him the first ever Polish rider to stand on the podium in Paris.
And the route they face today, surprisingly, in very hot and humid conditions just south of Paris, throughout the department of the Essonne, bringing the riders away from Bretigny, 2 fourth category climbs en route to Montlhery. It's 48 kilometres or 30 miles, and Sean Yates is already home and dry today amongst the early starters. His time, not a good one though, 1 hour, 5 minutes and 13 seconds for him. This is Tony Rominger in the polka dot jersey as winner of the King of the Mountains competition this year, riding his third Tour de France. He's never ridden a good Tour de France before, but he's missed it for the last couple of years, and he's come back this year and he has ridden a marvellous race. The only man really who has forced the overall leader of this event, Miguel Indurain, to actually hurt on the mountains. Now, Rominger has said he can do a good time trial. We believe he can. He's racing for second place in this race today, and the last few moments of concentration, everything Rominger has said about what he can do, well, now he's got to go out there and do it. He's looking for 1 minute 13 seconds off Alvaro Mejia and 14 seconds of Jaskula to go up onto the winner's podium in Paris. And now a chance to have a look at the world champion, Gianni Bugno, who usually rides a good time trial. He's run, in fact, Miguel Indurain close these last couple of years in certain time trials. In others, he's actually been beaten by minutes. And look at this now. Gianni Bugno is going to knock Jean-Francois Bernard off the top. If he sprints for the line, he can see the clock, and that's why he's going for it. It's going to be desperately close. As Gianni Bugno, the world champion, comes up to the line. This is the target to beat now. The world champion, 5 seconds to the better. 1 hour, 2 seconds for Gianni Bugno on the line. Now let's have a look at the man in the hot seat today, Alvaro Mejia from Colombia, who rides for the American Motorola team. He knows the two riders who have just left in front of him have a real shot now at taking his second place overall in this year's Tour de France, because Jaskula only has to beat him by 14 seconds and Rominger by 1 minute and 13. He lost more than that to both of them in the last long time trial 2 weeks ago. So he's going to have to pull out something very, very special today. Here's the arrival of Robert Miller, and Robert has never enjoyed the time trials in the Tour de France. Today is no exception. He's out of the saddle, just a big effort to get to that line. Miller finishes 79th in the time trial thus far, 1 hour 5 minutes 46 seconds. But we are now seeing the man in yellow as he makes his start from Bretigny, and this now is Indurain on the road again. The man who's established himself as the world's finest ever time trialist. He has never been beaten in the Tour de France, and since the prologue in 1991, he'll be very conscious of that today. His objective now will be to win this as well and to increase his overall lead. Let's go back out on the course. This is Johan Brunel, who's setting the pace so far. And look at this news coming in now. This is now the situation at 10.8 kilometers. Tony Rominger has gone through with the best time, 13:38. Rominger is 29 seconds, and this man, Johan Brunel, Chiappucci, has given half a minute to Rominger, but of course still to arrive there is Jaskula, Mejia and Indurain.
It's an unbelievable time there by Tony Rominger at the first time check, and he really has started with a morale to try and move up there into second place overall. He believes that along with Miguel Indurain, he's the strong man of this Tour de France, and today I think he really wants to prove that and climb up on there to the second step of the podium.
Indurain here wears number 1, the privileged number of the winner of the race a year ago, and this rider here wears number 11 because in fact that is Claudio Chiappucci, and he was second. Let's just look at the checks again. Indurain is in, and look at this. Indurain has dropped to third place, Paul. Rominger and Jaskula are faster than him, and that is a turn up for the books.
Well, that really is surprising. Tony Rominger was expecting to do a good ride today, but I don't think he ever expected to go ahead of Miguel Indurain. Indurain may well have taken an easy start so that he won't have too much of a problem at the end, but that is incredible that Rominger can put 23 seconds into him at the first time check.
So that's the situation at the moment on the time trial stage today, but all of the big riders still to come into the finish. We'll be back after the break. And welcome back. We're watching the time trial stage, the penultimate day of the Tour de France, and now we expect to see the arrival on camera of the important men in this year's race. Here is Stephen Roach approaching the finish. 1 hour has slipped by. This is a good ride by Stephen Roach, once the king of the time trials himself when he won the Tour in 1987. He's still got plenty of speed in those legs. Many people say, and in fact ask him, not to retire this year, but he's made his mind up. This will be his last Tour and 1 day to go for him as he comes to line. And a great round of applause for Roach, 5th best so far, 1 hour and 1 minute. And here now comes Tony Rominger to the top of the check at 26 kilometres. This is the man who's rocking the Tour today. He really looks determined, doesn't he? And the fastest time goes through there in just over 30 minutes. Rominger is setting the pace. Now, can Indurain match that?
That time by Tony Rominger out on the course must have shocked this man quite a little bit, and I feel sure that his team manager, Jose Miguel Echavarri, will have given the information to Miguel, but he won't panic. He knows he started the day off with a 5-minute and 41-second advantage over Tony Rominger, so that's not important, but it's a question of pride, and I really think he would like to go out with a bang and win the final time trial stage of this year's Tour de France.
Here's the overtake. Tony Rominger started 3 minutes behind Bjarne Rice. He's going to cruise past him. Look at this, and he's caught him with 19 kilometres to go to the finish, so just 29 kilometres of racing there to catch Bjarne Rice. This is the situation at 26 kilometres. Rominger is still the best man there, but Indurain has yet to arrive at that point.
Well, look at the speed of this man going down there. He must have been really impressed by the hour record yesterday, because he's going at speeds that will be around that as well. Over 50 kilometres an hour he'll be doing at the moment, and you can actually see the speed of Tony Rominger as we look down there from the helicopter.
Here's Miguel, and he appears there to, I'm not sure in fact, Paul, whether he may have a little bit of cramp coming in there, or whether it was just straightening out his shorts, but he certainly isn't riding as smoothly as we've seen him in the past. There's no doubt about that now. We're waiting for the check from 26 kilometres here. Rominger's gone through in 30 minutes and 33 seconds. Jaskula has gone through just slightly slower than that, 22 seconds off that pace. And here on the climb is Mejia, and he's given already 2 minutes and 8 seconds to Rominger at this point, which means he is out of second place now, and it's a question of whether it'll be Rominger or Jaskula in the runner-up spot tonight. And now we've got a chance to see the face here of Miguel Indurain, and it's not the normally placid look of this coolest of cool men. It is in fact now Indurain in trouble in his favourite race. Jaskula has already gone behind the time of Rominger, and he's going to be very close to being beaten here on the climb by Jaskula. So Indurain in trouble today and conceding time in the time trial. My goodness me, these two other riders will be kicking themselves now. They might have realised, but too late. They could have won this Tour de France, because in fact Indurain is now only third best time over the climb, 31 minutes and 18 seconds, and that is sensational. Here's our first chance now to see Zenon Jaskula today, who is also riding as a sensation today in the time trial. We remember he won a stage this year in the Tour of Switzerland in the time trial, and now he's really refound himself after a middle-of-the-road time trial at the Lac de Madine. It's become a one-on-one battle between Jaskula and Rominger, and at the first time check, Jaskula had lost 22 seconds to Tony Rominger. At the second time check, it's opened up to 43 seconds to Rominger. Both are now moving quicker than Miguel Indurain.
Well, he had a 49-second deficit or advantage this morning over Tony Rominger, and looking at him at the moment, he really seems to be suffering, and it may well be that it won't be long before Tony Rominger moves up into second place overall, and I feel that that is the position he deserves after the Tour de France that he's ridden this year.
And we have alongside us here on the commentary position, Stephen Roach. Stephen, today is quite a sensation because Tony Rominger is faster than Indurain at every time check.
Yes, it's, I've been looking at on the other television, I've seen the very same thing, but you know, it's not unusual that Rominger or that Indurain is beaten one time. Rominger has always been a very, very good time trialist. We know that from the past, from his times in the Tour of Spain over the last 2 years. But today we thought that the time trial would have suited more Indurain than Rominger. But it seems like, looking at the two of them, it feels like Indurain is more or less a bigger gear than Rominger, and it's possible that maybe he used too big a gear on the early part of the race.
Well, we'll just switch back briefly to the finishing line. Johan Bruneel coming in here. This is going to be the time to beat now. He's pushed Gianni Bugno all the way, and in fact Bruneel is going to set the best time, and this is going to be a sensational time by the rider who now holds the fastest average speed for a stage win in any Tour de France. He did it at Amiens. He comes up to the line. It's going to be close. It's an awful long way to the line here, but he's done it. 59 minutes and 18 seconds. That is now the time at which Tony Rominger is aiming, and on the checks out on the course is beating. So Tony Rominger, we're waiting now for his arrival at 42.5 kilometres, and I think we're going to see something quite sensational. Rominger has ridden today with tremendous adaptation. He must have psyched himself up all night, Paul.
Well, definitely he'd announced to a lot of the press that he was going to come out with something very, very special today. And most people doubted him because they felt that Miguel Indurain was unbeatable in the time trial, that he wouldn't be able to do anything against this man. But at the moment, the first two time checks, he's proving that he can rival Miguel Indurain in the time trial as well as in the mountains.
Zenon Jaskula, and now you can see him. These two are shoulder to shoulder now for second place on the podium in Paris. And the gap between them is 1 minute and 8 seconds. 5 kilometers to go, that's 3 miles for Tony Rominger. And he's now head-to-head with Miguel Indurain, and for the first time, he is now ahead of Indurain in a time trial in the Tour de France.
Rominger going through the 42-kilometer mark there with a time of 51 minutes 01.
Well, that is the time now, 42 kilometers. Indurain is still to arrive there. So too is Jaskula and Mejia, but Rominger again has thrown out the gauntlet. Best time, 51 minutes and 1 second. He's 2 minutes and 23 seconds ahead of Brunel, who has finished in 59 minutes and 8 seconds. So Keir Pucci comes in, and he might well climb over Andy Hampson with this ride. He's caught him for 3 minutes almost. 1 hour 43, and in 6th place on the finish. And look at this is a sensational. Tony Rominger has punctured and changed his bike at high speed. Well, we just managed to catch a clip of that as our camera cut back from the finishing line, but Rominger straight back up to maximum output. What will it have cost him, Paul?
That probably cost him about 10 or 12 seconds there, but it was so quick. It's the kind of thing that riders take risks on a day like this. They will use specially light tyres, and the problem with the roads around here is that you can get a little bit of a flint and your tyre will go down in no time at all. But he's up, and with the advantage he's got at the moment, I don't think he has anything to worry about.
And let's have a look at that again now. He's clearly punctured as his front wheel has gone. The most difficult wheel to control. Unusual way to step off the bike. You don't normally see that. Immediately grabs the bike, and look at the urgency. Give it me. Straight in, excellent change. He'll thank the team tonight for that one. 1 kilometer to go, and a little bit of a sensation there, but it hasn't affected the fluidity of Tony Rominger today. He's racing for what seems now to be the stage win in a time trial. Nobody expected that. I have to confess, I didn't, Paul Sherwin didn't, and I would like to suggest that no other television commentator did here, even the Spanish. But my goodness me, Rominger, not afraid of the reputation of Indurain, has took him on today. And Indurain may go on to win this Tour de France. But now I wonder if they'll say he'll win 4 or even 5. We might be looking at the winner next year right now as Tony Rominger comes to the finish. When he hits the line, it's going to be a sensational time. There's the time of Johan Brunel at 59.18. Rominger is going to be just outside the 57th minute mark. As Rominger comes up to the line, despite that puncture, it's going to be a wonderful time for the 48 kilometers, 30 miles today covered, well inside the hour. The crowd are willing him up to the line here. As he comes to the line, that puncture denied him beating 57 minutes and 2 seconds for Tony Rominger. An absolutely superb time, and Miguel Indurain won't know it yet, but he's going to have to pull out something rather special now. And the time has slipped by now, so Rominger is second in the race overall as Jaskula comes up towards the line, but he will retain 3rd place overall, and importantly a place on the honoured tribune in Paris tomorrow. These last few metres he's kept his rhythm all of the way, but Rominger today has ridden like 2 men. He's still finding the legs to sprint it out too, but the clock is well past the 58.01. He's going to finish with the second best time on the line, with just Miguel Indurain to come in, and Mejia of course, but Alvaro Mejia won't count on this time trial. Up to the line he comes with a time of 58.50, conceding 1 minute and 48 now to Tony Rominger. Alvaro Mejia conceding his runner-up spot and about to feel the backdraft of the Maillot Jaune going by him. And in fact he's going through on the inside. Mejia just comes over to his slipstream, which he's not of course allowed to do, and if he stays there for more than a couple of meters he'll be told by the referees to break away. With Indurain inside the final kilometre, the crowd here now watch him arrive. There's the time of Tony Rominger, And the time of Miguel Indurain, it's official. He's not going to beat that because there's too far to go to the line.
Well, it's over 1 minute and 10 seconds before he gets to the line, but that was an incredible ride, I feel, by the little Colombian, because to stay in contact with Miguel Indurain and lose only 3 minutes on a course like this, even if the big Spaniard is having a bad day, is a fine performance by the little Colombian, who I'm sure we'll hear a lot more about in the future. But the big story, I think, is the fact that Miguel Indurain has fallen away in the time trials after being so dominant for the last 3 years, and just look at the face on him.
And the flotilla of motorcycles all thought they would have been taking the picture of yet another stage winner of the Tour de France in the time trial, Miguel Indurain. Instead, they're not. He's going to come into second place ahead of Zenon Jaskula. His face tells the story. This great man has had a tough time in this Tour de France, and we didn't realise it. He's now only going to finish second in the time trial. 57 minutes and 44 seconds on the line. And finishing just behind him, 3 minutes slower, Alvaro Mejia, as the traditional mob fall in on the yellow jersey of the Tour. There'll be no change in that. Miguel Indurain most certainly will be the overall winner of the Tour de France tomorrow. What a sensational ride that was today by Tony Rominger. His time, 57 minutes and 2 seconds. Second, Miguel Indurain. Third, Zenon Jaskula. Fourth, Johan Brunel. And fifth, Gianni Bugno. I'm not surprised he's happy. He's had a sensational tour. 3 stage wins now, the King of the Mountains title, and now he's beaten Indurain in a time trial. He's with Paul Sherwin.
You said before the start this morning that you wanted to do a fine performance today. Are you surprised by your performance of today's time trial?
Yes, I'm happy that I did win this race, because you never know it really after 3 weeks if you are so strong to do it. I told me now you have to go and take a high speed, and I didn't. Yes, I heard my reference times of the other, but I couldn't change the speed then. I know now when we are going like that until to arrive, you can win it, and that was very good for me.
Everybody thought that Indurain was an unbeatable man, but I think this year in the Tour de France you've proved different.
But I already said it in the mountains, but when we are more people who can attack him, you don't have anybody. Nobody is unbeatable, because it's always possible to beat one.
Indurain tonight still leads the Tour de France, and in fact he's increased his overall lead. Now he leads by 4 minutes and 59 seconds, not from Alvaro Mejia, but from Tony Rominger. In third place is Zenon Jaskula, Mejia down to fourth, and Bjorn Ries remains in fifth. On the podium tonight, though, you can visibly see that Miguel Indurain suffered today, and I think he's glad now that this year the Tour de France is nearly over. All of the results, as always, on page 350 on Fortel. It's also your last chance to enter our competition. We'd like you to name the winner of tomorrow's stage in Paris, and when you think you know it, here's the telephone number to call: 0839 44 4554. The prizes are sensational. We've introduced now the Credit Lyonnais line that Miguel Indurain wins every night, also the yellow jersey signed by Miguel and by the stage winner, and also a print of the 1950 Tour of Lombardy cycle race. Really superb. But today the Tour de France has belonged to another man on the Tour, Tony Rominger. He rode a superb time trial. He put the leader of this Tour in trouble again. But it'll be Indurain tomorrow who will go to Paris as the rightful winner of his third Tour de France, and we'll be there too. We hope to see you. From us all here on the Tour de France, goodbye.